Welcome to Get Even. Get Even is the podcast where Even founders Ellen and Nora sit down with extraordinary women who've been there, done that in the world of business. Get Even is your backstage pass to their lived experiences, raw insights, personal stories, and the realities of success. Whether you're looking for inspiration, practical advice, or a peek behind the curtain of what it really takes to thrive, this podcast is for women ready to go further. It's time to get even. In today's episode, we bring you a conversation with Professor Selena Bartlett. Selena has made it to the peaks of an academic career. She's a Professor of Neuroscience and a group leader in neuroscience and obesity at QUT. She's led a research centre at the University of California. She's written 4 practical books, including Being Seen and Smashing Mindset. She also hosts 2 podcasts. She's a mother, a wife, and a triathlete. In this episode with Selena, we bring you incredible insights into neuroscience, including how to look after your mental health, how to nurture your own brain health, and that of your kids if you've got kids. Selena also offers great career insights, and she's very real about the trade-offs that she's had to make. Enjoy.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
It's a delight to have you. So the thing that I'm curious about is, especially when we speak with women who are as accomplished as you are, and as we've just learned, you've made it to the peaks of an academic career. What does success mean to you? Somebody who has a CV like you, what does success actually mean?
Success for me is ensuring that the next generation have success too. And everything I do is really with that in mind. So I think a lot about this question. And it's such a deep question, actually. It's a question where you have to think about, just because you can do something, should you do something? And what I mean by that is, as you reflect on your deathbed, what are the things you wish you should have done, you didn't do, you could have done better, and things like that. And in my lifetime, because of my age and everything, there are many decision points that each of us have, and they can transform your life in good and bad directions, and you won't even know the long-term consequences of some of those choices. But on reflection, as you get older, it's easier. So success for me is lying on my deathbed knowing I did as minimal harm in the world as possible and didn't take too much of the stuff, and make sure I gave all my knowledge back and minimize harm, I guess, is the word. And the older you get, the more you realize how much harm you can actually do every day, either without a smile or with a smile to people. So I know that's probably not exactly what you're looking for, but it comes from a deep thinking about that every day, because there's so many times in my life where I could have taken a completely different direction that might have led to more money, more career success, more of different things. But I end up taking a different path because I could sit back and reflect on, wow, if I do that because of neuroplasticity and because I understand the brain, I'm going to have to transform myself into that direction to maintain it. And you see this a lot in people that end up taking the focus that all you need is money, all you need is fame, all you need is celebrity. But if you actually look at the people that attain it, yes, there might be a small percentage that are really happy about that, but ultimately you always need more. And that in academia, it's very much like that too. You always could get more papers, you can get more prestige, you can get more nature covers, you could get more this, that. You know what I mean? There's always more by traveling the world to attain more. And so success to me looks like just living your life exactly with what you have, and reflecting on how lucky you are to have as much as we do in Australia.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I also think in your answer there's something about how we make career decisions and the different frameworks or lenses that we use when considering the different options available to us. Like you said, you could always go for more. You could go for quantity, you could go for fame, you could go for money. But it sounds like you've got this implicit decision-making framework about how you evaluate the success of your life, your career, and your impact. Have you formalized how you make decisions like that in your career?
Yeah, I think about it really a lot. And it's because I know the only thing that's left behind when I'm gone are what I've left inside my children and other people. That's the only thing you leave behind. And I've had a lot of experience of that recently with elder care and being around someone that just passed away, my husband's dad, who is amazing, man. He actually personifies. He just loved living. He loved having a cup of tea. Every cup of tea he had, he'd just look at it and he loved it. So for me, that's the purpose, is just to love living, no matter what's happening to you. But watching his passing and others that I've witnessed, you don't take anything with you, but you do leave a lot behind. And that's in who's around you. How have you led your life? You're a role model, mirror neurons. Everything we do goes into other people, both good and bad, but mainly the bad stuff goes in at a much greater rate. And so knowing that, because of the way the brain's developed and formed, because it takes negative information in over positive information in, we do really affect people. You know, every day we affect people, and it stays in generations. And you see this playing out every day in our lives. So these decisions are really important to me. I've had many critical decision-making moments in my life. Specifically, one big one was in 2009, 2010, when I was at the peak of my career. I had won $10 million in National Institute of Health funding. I had a huge research lab in America. I had 2 kids that were heading to high school, and we'd been there for like 12 years. And I could have kept going, and most people would have. They would never give up $10 million in funding. But I lived in a very competitive, amazing situation that really allowed me to have a career as a woman in science, accelerated compared to if I stayed here in Australia. But I also lived in a very toxic environment, and I recognize really with a lot of remorse and unhappiness that if I was to maintain my career in that direction, I was going to have to, one, transform myself, but two, be transformed by the environment. And so I made a very, very big decision to come back to Australia and give up. Probably I was only allowed to bring back one $2 million grant, and which is where I started again here in Australia. And I have absolutely no regrets about that decision for lots of reasons. But they're big moments, aren't they? They're very hard moments to give up on stuff. It's easy to take stuff, but it's really hard to give up on stuff. And I say that over and over again to everyone listening to this work that you're doing, even. Very important.
I think it's interesting there as you reflect on career. Quite often, when I speak with women at different stages in their careers, it's often this sort of linear or vertical progress that people seek, and taking a sidestep or taking a step into a different direction, or your example of actually sort of deciding to walk away from a $10 million grant. Often we think of those as sometimes we think of those as missteps or as something that doesn't propel our career forwards. But I wonder if you have any thoughts around the value of taking these lesser known paths and what they contribute to a career.
Oh, they're everything, because if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have discovered neuroplasticity. And all my books and my podcasts came from the sidestep. And if I kept going, I was literally, without recognizing it, in a cul-de-sac of scientific understanding of the brain. So just to give the audience an understanding of what I mean by that, is that we only learn by failing. And I never saw this as a failure. I just saw it as something that was, my children were more important, and me personally, my health really mattered, because if you knew what I was like at that time, I was getting, putting the kids to bed in my boots and my suit, going and sitting at the desk to write the grants. It sounds really impressive, but in the reality of it, I'm running the kids everywhere. I was doing 2 full-time jobs. I wasn't just, I didn't have someone helping me at home a lot. So and my generation of women, we just didn't think we should be scientists. We were told that every day. I was told to make the coffee, etc., every day. And I still get that occasionally, still quite a lot. But anyway, The sidestep was the making of me, both personally and scientifically and professionally and in my whole life purpose. And what I mean by that was I'm not like a traditional academic. If people are listening, looking for, I was there to understand the brain because my sister had a mental illness and I could not work out why she was treated the way she was. It just seemed confounding to me. Even though I was a pharmacist, I still couldn't work out. Her treatment seemed so severe. So everything in my life is about understanding the brain. So I had got to the point in my career where what I'd learnt wasn't going to help me learn more. I was pulling the brain down to its pieces and developing drugs with drug companies, which is why I got so much funding. And it got me to accelerate my scientific career, but not my scientific understanding of the brain. And I didn't even know that at the time at all. And so it was the sidestep in my move back to Australia. I ended up getting an ARC Future Fellowship. I got a research capacity building professorship, which is why I went to QUT. I had an amazing opportunity. I was offered jobs in Melbourne, but nothing could match what I was offered at QUT, and it still sustains me today. It's an amazing job, and I absolutely love it. But it was all my work that got me the job, but it was my sidestep that actually got me to talking to you today.
Yeah.
If I just kept doing and crossing the T's and dotting the I's and following that linear progression, I would not be talking to you today, for sure.
Yeah.
You would be no interest in my scientific papers or what I'd been working on at that point.
I definitely wouldn't know about you, but it's, for me, it's the same actually. I think I've probably had 4 big career transitions to date, and I think it's those transitions or pivots even that, for me personally, also I think that's where the value has come from, because that's
Yeah.
where you actually also offer something more unique, I think, by
Yes.
not
And
going down the well-trodden path.
yeah, and you're so young. I took ages to do this. I just want to put that out there. I mean, I didn't move to America till I was 37, and I had a 4-month-old baby and a 3-year-old when I started my career there.
Wow. I think
So
there's, yeah,
yeah,
something in that also about career doesn't it I think it's not really age defined. I mean, you make career decisions at all points in your life, and I think, also this definition of success that we started with. I feel when you impose this sort of schedule or timetable on age or dates that you have to achieve something by, I think also that doesn't actually get you something that is authentic or that feels fulfilling or inspiring. I think that's another thing, is often we have these very rigid ideas of what a career needs to look like.
yeah, I got really lucky on this. I've always taken a viewpoint of I have time,
Yeah.
and it's because my grandmother didn't have my dad until she was 46 after 6 miscarriages, and she didn't buy her first hotel that made our family sustainable until she was in her 60s. And bought her first house on the Gold Coast at 74 and traveled the world on her own around boats in her 70s. So that was my role model, and she is the one that called me seen, which is what my book's called, Being Seen. And so I had her always in my mind about, Selena, you've got time. You've got to prioritize the things that matter first. And that was raising my kids to be as healthy as possible while also sustaining my career through that time, because I had to pretend I didn't have children. But I always took the slower road through academia, and I also see that you can do all sorts of things. You don't have to follow the traditional pathways. And I mentor lots of young academic women at the moment around this very issue, that I like to accelerate their careers, but also give them the opportunities to see that they can have families, and and they don't have to do what everyone else is telling them to do. There's a pathway for them that's available to you, which is what you're
Yeah.
talking about for you and Ellen as well, starting
Yeah.
even careers. And the time has come. I mention it wherever I go. And like, we're just at the coffee shop this morning and said it to the girls, who goes, "Oh my God, that's so good." I said, "I know, you've got to be on there."
Yeah. So Selena, you mentioned the women that you mentor. What are you seeing? And you've talked about how they're trying to figure out how to time career and caring. What are some of the other big challenges or questions that these women are dealing with? And what are some of the messages or pieces of advice that you find yourself coming back to time and again when you're mentoring others?
It's always the same. My number one thing is I teach them what to say no to, meaning the housework, both at home and at work. I teach them that the things that really matter, I have them laser focus on them. I work out that I try and teach them 80% is okay. It doesn't need to be 100% because that's not what anyone else does out there in the real world. I teach them that they need help. So women are terrible at asking for help. And because of that, we're all nutting it out in silos, where the new neuroscience and others, because we're social species, everything's easier together. And we've got to support each other. Women are terrible at supporting each other. And they do not get support from men either. I mean, they get some support, but not the same types of support that accelerate your career. And you won't even realize that until it's too late. So I feel like I'm the equivalent of the person that I wish I had when I joined that lab in ANU and watched all the guys getting their papers written for them, or me writing it for them, or them getting introduced to the networks overseas. And I was just expected to have children, and which I did have, but I wasn't expected to have a career in science. Like, that's like, no way. And so I think we just want to change the narrative and help women see that, and men, like, together, see that we're better together and the whole world's better with a diverse voice around the table. And I think it softens everything. The more I'm starting to see what women are doing out there, as you know, from I mentioned Women Changing the World awards, and seeing some of the stuff they're doing just humbles me. And I'm like, well, that's why the world's okay, isn't it?
I love the fact that you're seeing all of this optimism, and I really resonate with what you're saying around we need to actually work on this together,
Yes,
which I
it's the
think is
key,
really.
Nora. I think it's the key, and I think it's the bit that women don't understand. So I want to give you one example. I'm not going to name names, but I think this really hits home. So I decided, because of my age, I want to give back to young people. I really believe in that. And so part of my role, I offered my time just for free. I said, book time with me on my email signature, and offered 30 minutes in my workplace twice a week. Just sign up there if you want to. And interestingly, the only people that signed up were the men, and not a
Oh,
single woman signed up to that free time. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, that's really interesting. And I'm in a female dominated profession. I'm in healthcare kind of area. And I'm just like, wow, that's so interesting. And the guy said to me, oh, yes, I've been told I need to have networks and relationships to be successful. And I'm like, yeah, you do. And it was great. I mean, I was able to help all of them and everything. But then afterwards, I'm like, wow, that's the missing piece right there.
Yeah.
Is that we're not asking for help, and nor are we seeking the relationships and mentorships that can help navigate the minefields of our area. We just hit them all. And so in my field, there's a valley of death where if you're not publishing, if you're not getting grants, but you're taking up all the housework and teaching and administration, that's exhausting. And so then you fall through, because how you get promoted is through the other stuff that's really hard to maintain,
Yeah.
because it takes a lot of extra work. Do you know what I mean? Like doing research and getting ethics approval and getting the grants. It's the stuff that can fall by the wayside, but it's the stuff that really matters early in your career. And so that was really interesting experiment. I only did it last year. And so I've worked out how to change that. Like, I need to be more actively promoting that message.
So, Selena, this is interesting to me. So, when I had abroad, I had about 30 people in the whole team with 4 direct reports. And every few months, I would open up the diary and just say, I'm happy to go for a walk and talk with whoever would like, happy to go for a coffee, get some, just listen to what's going on for you, get some advice, some mentoring. And same thing that you observed, is I found that the men found it much easier to take up the space, or to just sort of make themselves visible, make themselves heard, than the women. And often I'd have to actually tap women individually on the shoulder and say, would you like to have some time?
Exactly. So isn't that interesting? So that there is the nut of the problem straight away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you're trying to address that on this platform. So
Yeah.
it is actually a thing. So it comes from, I guess, evolution, competition, how we're trained, what we're told to do. We've always been in charge in a way. Like, I think the interesting thing for women listening, we're actually really powerful, and we have to always have held ourselves back
Yeah.
because we've been told we're not allowed to be something or do something. And mostly we always hold ourselves back. Even if
Yeah.
someone's saying something we know it's not true, we won't say it
Yeah. I think there's a
because
huge
it's a
amount about,
training. It's a training. It's training your brain. It's changing things. It's something that's generational. If you think about it, Nora, here in Australia, if I go back to who was teaching physics at the University of Queensland in the 1920s, I know a woman that did physics in the 1920s. Her daughter did it in the 1960s. She was not allowed to do anything with her physics degree. I think she was allowed to teach after she had her children. Her daughter was allowed to do an honours degree in the 60s, but as soon as she was engaged, that was it. And then I come along in the 80s, and as you said, I did mathematics at the university. I've had children. I'm a professor of neuroscience, but I went through a lot to get here. But I'm here, right? And so then I have people like yourself and all the young women I'm mentoring. They wouldn't even know about these conversations in a way, or have any, like, they wouldn't ever put up with the things that we put up with to ensure our success to go forward, right? So the key here is that just because it happened that way, it doesn't mean it has to happen that way again. So women that made it, you've got to help other women make it, just because they don't have to play golf if they don't want to. They don't have to do what you did just because, but we still have to stay in the game so that women don't give up because looks too hard. So we've got to make it easier so it's
yeah.
not so hard. And
Yeah.
that's the key, right? Is giving back to the
And
future.
it's so important, I think, not to pull up the ladder after you've made it, and that's exactly what I admire about your work. Is you obviously broke through in a field that's male dominated, that was difficult for you, but rather than being the typical sort of queen bee, which there's been a lot of research into that phenomenon, you're doing the opposite. You're not saying I want every other woman to have it as difficult as I did. You're actually saying, how can I make it easier for those who come after me?
Yeah.
And it's also, as you've said, it's kind of core to your purpose,
And
which,
that's what you're doing with this platform, even. So I want to tell you the defining moment when I made this choice in my head. It was I was sitting in an auditorium at the John Curtin School at ANU, and the whole staff were there, and a guy who was quite senior stood up in that auditorium. I was a young postdoc. I hadn't had children yet, but I was sitting next to my principal investigator, my group leader. Anyway, this guy stands up and he goes, "We all know that there's a locker room." So this is the 90s. There's a locker room that exists, and women are not in that locker room. So they're not hearing the conversations that are taking place that allow someone to progress. They're just not part of that. So what I think we need to do is we need to create a position, a senior position that only women can apply for, but obviously they're going to be incredibly qualified. And the only two people that shot it down were the two female professors in that auditorium at that day. And it's like clear as a bell. And I said to myself in that moment, hey, like the whole time I'm listening, going, oh, yes, we do. I need a mentor that's not just playing golf or not having children. I want to see someone that wants to have a family or look like me, want to be a scientist. And then that got shot down. That was it. And so in that moment, I said to myself, because you don't know at that stage if you have any chance at all, but I was in there to study the brain, so I was going to do it no matter what. I said to myself, right, if I do get the chance, I will never do that to other women. I will be someone that wants to have a family and show people that they can do that too. And when I get the opportunity, I'm not ripping up the drawbridge behind me. I'm going to lay it down and try and help as much as I can where I can. I mean, it's not always easy to do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an angel in any way, but where I can, I always remind myself of that time, and I take that opportunity. That's why I said to you, I had the book Time with me, or I mentor people
Yeah.
that, not in my discipline, but young women trying to make it, who have little kids, and it's hard. It's survival. There's no
Yeah.
two ways around it. But we could help each other make it easier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, I really love that, and I think there's some parallels to some of the messages in your book. So let's talk a bit more about Being Seen in particular. So Being Seen was recently released. It offers parents a science-backed, practical guide to nurturing children's brain health, and it helps to manage stress and foster resilience. So the Being Seen book is not just about limiting screen time. It's about understanding what's the neuroscience of brain development, what's the neuroscience of parenting and connection. And also, as you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, small, not small at all, announcement. Last night in London, the Women Changing the World Awards recognized Being Seen with the Big Idea Award. Congratulations on that, Selena. Can you tell us a bit more about Being Seen and how that connects to your purpose and to the work that you do?
Yeah, it's the silver bullet for parenting. So what do I mean by being seen? I mean that if you want your children to be thriving across their whole lifespan, it just takes a few minutes every day for you to actually be with your children, to see who they are and to accept who you have in front of you. So and that sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it's actually really challenging. So you're going to say to me, what do you mean by that? How can 30 years of brain science come back to that one tiny little thing? Well, it did take me 30 years. I developed drugs. I'm a pharmacist. I studied the brain all the way down to its synapses. And the piece that changed was when I did come back to Australia and discovered neuroplasticity. I also discovered what causes mental health issues and illnesses. I understand why my sister got schizophrenia and I didn't. And I have my own issues. Everyone has their issues. We're on a spectrum. I understand that really deeply. And so once you understand that and you know that you can use neuroplasticity and start to reduce the root causes that lead to people's mental illness, you've got to do something about it. So that's why my tagline is brain health is everyone's business and not just someone else's problem, because we actually understand it now. So we need to do something different. So the difference is when children between 0 and 3, or even all the way up to 18 or older, really across our lifespan, the brain needs a couple of really key nutrition ingredients, and that's not food, that's you. It's like healthy adults. Healthy adults drive thriving children, full stop.
What do you
Because
mean by healthy adults?
So healthy adults mean healthy adults that can regulate their stress, their emotion. They're not taking down their children. They're not taking on society's expectations of what children should be. They're not putting undue pressure on children that don't have the capability of doing what you expect them to do because society says that's what you should be doing. That's what I'm saying. It's an easy concept, but very difficult in the environments we're growing up in Western societies to actually implement. But if you really understand that this is going to drive their mental health for the rest of their life, I think it's something worth really educating yourself about. It took me a long time with a lot of, things that I did bad as a parent myself. There is no good parenting, put it that. We're all learning, so there's no one to blame here. But we didn't have the scientific evidence to show just how impactful these early life experiences are on brain development. So brain development is the epicenter of child development, and there's so much that the environment is impacting on and shaping the brain. But the key one is, for obvious reasons, is that we're a social species, so it's going to make sense that the only way a baby can learn is through the people around them. And so they're just actually, if you really pay attention, they're just copying everyone around them. That's it. It's a mimicking thing. So if you're really stressed out, if you don't have time, you don't have attention, you give it away to other people to look after your kids and their emotional development, then that's what you're going to get. And if kids don't get enough attention between the ages of 0 and 3, they'll spend the rest of their life looking for it in many, very many interesting ways. And I can think of a lot of leading people in the world that didn't get enough attention between 0 and 3 when it's really obvious to me. And I just wish they did, because the world would be in a different place. but it is key ingredient, and being seen means that. I have a screen on my book because it is the number one thing that parents are kind of struggling with in 2024, and it's a really big deal. But at the epicenter, what I really mean is that seeing your children, accepting your children, and unconditionally loving your children, no matter what, is a key ingredient. And I mean that from no matter what a child genetically or otherwise has been given at birth, because we're not born
Yeah.
a blank slate, we'll still allow their thriving. Like, for example, my brother's eldest child was born with Down syndrome, and she just represented Australia in the Special Olympics in Berlin for swimming and gymnastics.
Wow.
And she's thriving. She's thriving more than many children. For example, I have other examples where they went to the top prestigious school. They had an apartment bought for them in New York. They have a job at Apple, and they're not thriving.
Mm.
And I think that's a prime example of what I mean by being seen.
Yeah.
Elizabeth was seen for who she really is, accepted and loved unconditionally, and that is really playing out 20 years later. And that's kind of the epicenter of my work, and why I'm so passionate about what I do is to take this out to people, because we can all do it, can't we? We can all help people thrive,
Yeah.
in their life.
Yeah. It sounds simple, but it really isn't. I think just to actually see somebody for who they are, to love and accept them for who they are, I think rather than your version of who you would like them to be or what you would like them to look like or what you would like for them to do, I think is incredibly tricky. But it's such a beautiful message to actually say this is what it takes to give your children what they need. It's not all of these other things. It's actually just give them
Exactly.
attention, love them for who they are. I mean, it's really like, how have we not been thinking about this?
I know it's so profound, but it's so difficult because of, like, we're surrounded by an environment that encourages competition and pressure,
Yeah,
and now in a tech-driven world too, that if you're not part of this, then you're a loser kind of thing, and then that reflects on the parents in their own mind. So I'm a parent. I understand the pressures. I was part of that. My kids grew up in America, which is very highly in the Bay Area. It's really pressured. Like I fortunately, thank God, grew up in a country town in Australia, so I could at least put one layer of protection around my children and let them become the free spirits that they are in some sense. But I was still surrounded by 4 languages, 10 instruments, four sports games. Hold your kids back so they can get a sporting scholarship. Got to get into the top 20 schools, otherwise you're useless. And this is the narrative playing out. And I know it's not everywhere, and it's in certain environments, but I feel like that environment has got, the influences have gone wider than it used to be. I think it was a smaller group of people that were like that, but I feel like it's really infiltrated even our schooling system now,
yeah,
where 4-year-olds are getting iPads for learning when we know that their brains can't learn on iPads. They need to be out
yeah.
in nature playing with their friends, And that for me is really difficult. And that's why I wrote this book in a hurry too, because we as parents
Needed.
that love our children, we have to stop and say, no. That's why I said to you, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Do you know what I mean? Just because you're told maybe that if they learn a third language, they might get into Harvard, does that mean it's right for your child? We have kids topping themselves in Westchester County in the US that didn't get into their school of choice because now it's top 3, not top 20. Do you know what I mean? So where are we taking this to is something that I find really fascinating looking on the outside.
Yeah,
We circle back to looking forward and trajectorying and thinking of your life backwards, because you do only leave yourself inside your children or the people around you. And that's because of neuroplasticity. It's because of the way the brain's formed, and why these things are multi-generational is because we
mm,
do pass all of this along. So the beauty of neuroplasticity and understanding this knowledge as facts is you can change it. And that's what I love. My message is all about the change. It's not about laying out all the problems, but once you understand it and you can change, and you can do something differently, which is what I've done for myself sometimes, and in my parenting journey too. I'm still learning all the time and making adjustments all the time, but you can do that. You know what I mean? You're not stuck. That's the beauty of this message. And the beauty of your platform is that we can do this together. It's not like, oh, yeah, that's really hard. And I look at the things that are happening right now around Australia. I didn't think would happen this year. Like, they're doing a huge campaign. We're going to Canberra.
Yeah.
Didn't think it would happen. It happened like in 5 days, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can make these changes. You just have to keep going and know that single people can make these changes.
Yeah. So there's a sense of agency and a sense of optimism.
Yes.
And so thinking about, you talked about your own understanding of neuroplasticity. For women, what would you like for women to know about their brain health? What would you like for them to understand about the concept of neuroplasticity? And the pressure that you've talked about, I don't think it just applies to children and to parenting, but for women as well, the pressure to succeed, the pressure to do it all, the pressure to do it with a smile. What would you like to say to women? What's your message of, how can you use your understanding of the brain and the decades that you've spent studying it to make women's life that bit easier?
Well, first of all, you're bloody powerful. And so you've already got enough. You're already good enough, and you're already brilliant. And if all you have to do is think for a second, what would happen if there were no women in the world? I often reflect on that, and wow, it wouldn't be a lot of fun, I don't think. So yes, put it right there. Baseline, you're good enough. The next things I'm going to tell you is just how to manage stress and how to not put it into the generations coming after you, and understand that stress is the number one thing that stops us from realizing our potential. It stops us from taking these steps towards a better future for ourselves and our children. And that's been wired into our brain for 200 million years of history. One, females haven't really been studied in science. So if a drug's not working for you, there's a reason for that. It probably doesn't work for females, and it was never studied. So that's another big field that's opening up. I just interviewed a leading expert, Kat Bohannon, who wrote the book Eve. Highly recommend you read that. And I'm also guilty for not studying females in my work because I wasn't allowed to, for lots of reasons. So you can do whatever you choose to, but you've got to set your mind to it, and you've got to have help. You've got to reach out and surround yourself with women that want you to be successful. But really notice if they want you to be successful. So they will give up credit. They'll put their name second author. They will be thinking about your independent career. They won't be thinking about how to use you to get ahead themselves further without pretending that they're helping you. There's a big difference between helping and pretending to help. And recognizing who to surround yourself with is key. It's really key. And it's not very often you get people that want you to be successful because they're afraid it's going to take away from their success. But I'm telling you, it won't. So, and if you get in this position, can you please do the same thing? If you can, we need you. We need your help. Women need your help to succeed in this world that's really hard to succeed in certain areas that are very male dominated still. Neuroplasticity is the key that gets you there. So as you learn to manage stress, and that's what my first book, Smashing Mindset, was all about. It was my first foray personally into neuroplasticity and really recognizing the brain can change with a lot of training and effort. It's very powerful, and it will take you places that you will not believe once you really get into it. So I'm a bit of an extreme neuroplasticity person. Once I recognized that, I started running 2 hours every day. I started following all these extreme people, cold showers, ice baths, you name it. That's the people I'd listen to. And I recognize I'm a bit, as someone would say, a hard ass inside. I have that kind of energy. I have a male energy inside me as well as a female outside. But I love neuroplasticity because it's a game changer, especially for menopause, for depression. It got me out of depression through a really bad divorce, all sorts of things. I've been able to lean into that. And I'm also able to lean into it to teach other people how to lean into it. And that's what my books are all about, is showing you how to do that. And my podcast, it's like learn from the experts, democratize the information, get it to people, and not hold it to yourself. You know, it's all about imparting the knowledge. Knowledge and education and science are very powerful. So
Yep.
becoming educated, leaning into this is the key to change, because we're not told that we can change. We're told that we're stuck in this way. And I'm guaranteeing you, when you lean into this, it's really cool. It's very, very
Big
cool.
things can happen.
Yes, it really
Selena,
can. But
just
it's not to say if you're happy and you're content. I am totally like, if you're content, you've 100% of the way there too.
so you're not piling on the extra pressure.
No, because I don't think they need it. I think we're already really good. It's just that for someone like me, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a curious person. I like to push things. I can't help it. It's just how I am. But I wasn't always like that. I'd almost given up when I was really unwell at the end of my career in the US. I was very unwell from not taking care of myself, not doing any of the things I'm telling you. I
Yeah.
was running a big lab, running the kids. I was going nuts. It was not pretty. I was very successful on the outside, and I got a lot of recognition for that, which I find so interesting. I got the most money and recognition during that phase, when inside I was the most unwell in my life. I think you probably see this as a common story. You see it everywhere. But now I may not have some of those big NIH grants and all of that fame, but I have more inside than I've ever had in my life.
Mm. Selena, what was it that got you out of that really bad time in your life where you had
Yeah.
the external success, but internally you weren't well? What were some of the things that really made a difference for you?
So Smashing Mindset. That's my book. Very proud of that. It was actually called Miggy Matters because it's the part of the brain down here called the amygdala you hear about all the
Yeah.
time. But that's just a really small part. It's really not right. The science has updated a lot since that time in 2014. But when I understood it deeply, because I've been writing about it, I was following all the amazing work of Bruce McEwen and others, and I was sitting in my office and I went, oh my God, I've just learnt and taught myself to be really sad, because I had a lot of sadness happening. It's real. Like, I had a really terrible divorce. I moved countries. A lot of stuff was bad. But my reaction to it led me down a pathway where everything turned grey around me, even though I had all these grants and money and blah, 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 and, kids. But then one day I was sitting in the office and I went, it really just clicked in my brain. Wow, equally I can, because I understand the parts, the striatum, which is going to sound really weird, but when you're learning something new, when you think about driving, right,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard, isn't it? Where your hands go, the pedals, you're thinking about every movement. But
Yeah,
when
it's
it's
not
when you
automatic at that
yes, well,
point.
there's another part of once you've learnt it by repetition, it goes into a completely different part of your brain, which is called the lateral striatum, which is where you've got your automatic behaviors sit. And I applied it to my life, and I went, wow, I can do the same thing to rewire my brain out of this situation internally. And because of neuroplasticity, my understanding of the brain at that point, which is about 25 years of doing all things Eastern, Western, and in between, to understand what people are doing in these spaces, I went, wow, I need to do this for myself if I'm going to believe it's true that neuroplasticity exists, because I met this amazing woman just like you. A young woman started a lab next to my lab in San Francisco, and she pulled me up to her lab and she showed me an adult brain on a treadmill changing. She mapped the synaptic changes using calcium imaging and showed me those images. And she said, do you really believe drugs are going to be the solution here for everything? And I said, yes, because as a pharmacist at that time, that's how I was running my lab for 12 years. And so, but it wasn't until her, plus reading this paper, me sitting in my office being very depressed myself, and then going to a doctor, and I'm not going to go all the details, but I just said to myself, I need to see if I can do this for myself. And that's what I did. And so it started one morning by forcing myself out of bed, going to look at a waterfall that was running in the park where I lived in Brisbane at the time, and forcing myself to look at it. And that was the beginning of the journey out. And everything honestly was blue, was grey, and like the sky didn't look blue, the trees didn't look green. It's a grey feeling that many people listening will understand. And I rewired my brain out of that. And I probably did it harder than you need to do it because I didn't know any better. But then I started triathlons, got to a half Ironman. Then I started around sugar, which is where my sugar addiction work came from. And, slowly, all sorts of little things, I really started to understand that I need to tackle the way stress is wiring my brain. And yes, I have all these things happening to me, but it's my reaction to them that I can really control. And that's what I started to do. And that's where my Smashing Mindset book was born. And including all of my 25 years of science at that point, I wrapped into something that was really easy for someone to read in 2 hours. I made color illustrations and everything, but it still was a bit of an oversimplification from everything I've learned since that time. But I use it every day. And when I tell people your morning routine is key to rewiring your brain, because the brain likes negative things and stress at 10x the rate it likes positive things. And that's wired in from generations. Holocaust survivors know this. We know this from the Holocaust survivors. And the new science that's coming out is demonstrating that we hold these memories from previous generations. And that's why some people struggle more than other people. So it's not about pulling your bootstraps up. It's about meeting people where they are, understanding the human experience, understanding evolution, and meeting people exactly where they are to help give them something that resonates for them. And that's why I don't really like self-help books, and I don't like that kind of stuff, because it says it's on you, but it's not the science. It's not the neuroscience that we understand of where it's come from and why it's so different, hard. Why my sister got schizophrenia, I'm sure people are asking, and I worked it out. And it is to do with early life experiences and how things added up in her life that led to her having that psychotic break when she was 21. And so I know we can change that, because I know we can teach people about the root causes to actually improve mental illnesses instead of keeping down the path of medications and labels.
Wow. Selena, I don't even know where to finish our conversation.
It's okay. It's a long conversation, and I welcome, because it's a change in society, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your work. I think it's incredible. There's so much to be learned. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Nora Kozlowski, co-founder of Even, where our mission is to accelerate women's economic potential. Check out even-careers.com to learn how we support women and business to get even.